every single time you twist the key or push the start button on your F-150. A series of pre-programmed factory settings starts quietly eating away at your engine's lifespan. Ford engineered these parameters not to make your truck last 300,000 miles, but to squeeze past strict government emissions and fuel economy regulations just long enough to clear the factory warranty period. Most owners have no idea that the very behaviors their truck forces them into every day are actively accelerating mechanical wear. I have spent years inside these bays tearing down modular V8s and EcoBoost engines, and I see the exact same catastrophic failures over and over again, all traced back to the exact same factory configurations. Today, I am exposing 5 factory settings and features that are causing hidden damage, waste, or inefficiency inside your truck without you ever knowing it. Setting number 3 has caused more timing chain failures in my shop than almost anything else. And setting number 1 is so deceptive that most owners actually think it is beneficial to their engine, when in reality it is doing the exact opposite. Let's get into it. Setting number 5 is the factory-programmed Auto Start-Stop system. Ford markets this feature as a high-tech fuel saver that cuts your engine at red lights to reduce emissions and save you pennies at the pump. But here is what Ford doesn't tell you. Your engine experiences up to 75% of its mechanical wear during a start cycle. When an engine is running, the oil pump maintains continuous pressure, suspending the crankshaft and rod bearings on a microscopic film of oil. The moment the engine shuts off, that pressure drops to zero, and the heavy steel components settle directly onto the soft bearing surfaces. In a standard vehicle without this feature, an engine might experience 50,000 start cycles over its lifetime. With Auto Start-Stop enabled, that number skyrockets to over 500,000 cycles. I have personally inspected rod bearings from 2018 and 2019 EcoBoost engines with under 80,000 miles that were already worn down to the copper backing because they were being starved for protection during those constant, repeated restarts in heavy stop-and-go traffic. You are trading a fraction of a mile per gallon for premature bearing failure. The solution is simple. Make it a habit to press the physical deactivation button on your dashboard every single time you start the truck, or use an aftermarket module to permanently disable the feature and keep your oil pressure exactly where it belongs. Setting number 4 is one that Ford markets as an intuitive convenience feature, but under daily driving conditions. It is creating the exact environment that destroys your transmission, the factory transmission shift logic combined with skipped gears. To maximize fuel efficiency ratings on paper, Ford programs the 10R80 10-speed automatic transmission to upshift as early as humanly possible, often skipping gears entirely, climbing from first to third, then third to fifth, before the engine even reaches 2,000 RPM. This forces the engine to run at an unnaturally low RPM under heavy load, a condition known as engine lugging. When your transmission forces a 5,000-pound truck into 7th gear, while you are only traveling 30 miles per hour, it places immense torsional stress on the torque converter clutch and the internal planetary gear sets. Instead of letting the engine breathe in its natural power band, the transmission lugging creates high mechanical strain, spiking internal transmission temperatures well past the optimal 190 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Over time, this constant shifting back and forth under high load degrades the friction material on the clutches, leading to the notorious harsh shifting, hesitation, and eventual premature failure of the CDF clutch drum assembly. To stop this cumulative, invisible destruction, you need to change how the transmission behaves. Switch your truck into Tau.Hall or sport mode during city driving. This factory setting alters the shift logic, forcing the transmission to utilize every gear sequentially, keeping the engine RPMs slightly higher where it actually makes efficient power, and stopping the excessive clutch slippage that cooks your transmission from the inside out. Those first 2 settings are bad enough on their own, but as we climb higher up this list, the mechanical toll on your truck becomes significantly more severe. Moving into setting number 3, we are entering the territory of catastrophic internal engine damage that usually waits to show its face until the very second your factory powertrain warranty expires. Setting number 3 is the manufacturer's 10,000-mile Intelligent Oil Life Manito R system. Ford tells you that your truck's internal computer tracks your driving habits, idling time, and engine temperatures to dynamically calculate exactly when your oil needs to be changed, often pushing the interval out to 10,000 miles or a full calendar year. It sounds highly advanced, but the mechanical reality inside my shop tells a completely different story. This setting has caused more stretched timing chains, failed cam phasers, and locked up variable camshaft timing solenoids than almost any other variable on modern Ford engines. What the manufacturer downplays is that this algorithm is heavily weighted toward ideal laboratory conditions to artificially lower the cost of ownership metrics marketed to fleet buyers. Here's the hidden mechanism that destroys your engine. Inside a direct-injected EcoBoost or dual-injection Coyote V8, minuscule amounts of unburnt fuel and carbon soot wash past the piston rings during normal operation. This is called blow-by. Over 10,000 miles, that soot accumulates in the engine oil, turning a high-quality full synthetic into a microscopic liquid sandpaper. While the oil might still technically retain its base viscosity, the sheer volume of abrasive carbon suspended inside it begins grinding your engine components to dust. The primary victim here is your primary timing chain. The chain links rely on ultra-precise clearances, measured in thousandths of an inch. As that soot-laden oil pumps through the engine, it wears down the tiny pins connecting the chain links. When thousands of these pins wear down just a fraction of a millimeter, the entire chain slacks. This is what the internet calls timing chain stretch. Once that chain loses its tension, it slaps against the plastic guides, shattering them into pieces that drop straight into your oil pan, eventually clogging the oil pump pickup tube and starving the entire top end of oil pressure. By the time you hear that distinct metallic rattle on a cold morning start, the damage is done, and you are looking at a $4,000 teardown. To prevent this, ignore the dashboard display entirely. Reset the monitor whenever you want, but physically change your oil and filter every 5,000 miles or 6 months. Cutting that factory interval in half completely evacuates the abrasive soot before it can ever compromise your timing components. Setting number 2 steps directly into the electrical and mechanical systems of your turbochargers, bringing us to the factory-programmed powertrain cooldown strategy, or rather, the complete lack of one. When you pull off the highway after running at 70 miles per hour or after pulling a heavy trailer up a steep grade, your natural instinct is to park the truck, shift into gear, and immediately shut off the ignition. Ford's factory programming allows you to do exactly this without a single warning chime or built-in delay. On paper, it is seamless. In reality, it is a death sentence for your turbochargers. When your EcoBoost engine is working under load, the exhaust gas temperatures driving the turbocharger turbines easily climb between full 200 and full 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The center housing of the turbocharger relies on a constant flow of engine oil and engine coolant to pull that extreme heat away from the delicate journal bearings, which spin at upwards of 200,000 RPM. The second you shut the key off, the mechanical oil pump stops spinning and the oil pressure instantly drops to zero. With the engine off, that rushing stream of cooling oil completely stalls inside the turbocharger bearings. Because the exhaust manifold and turbine housing are still radiating over 1,000 degrees of latent heat, that stalled oil undergoes a process called thermal coking. The oil literally cooks inside the bearing housing, baking into a hard black carbon crust. The next time you start your truck, those razor-sharp carbon flakes act like an abrasive blade, scoring the turbine shaft and wiping out the brass journal bearings. Within a few thousand miles, the turbocharger seals fail, and your truck starts blowing blue smoke out the tailpipe or throwing under boost codes because the compressor wheel is physically dragging against its own housing. The factory programming lets you walk away, but the physics of heat transfer will punish your wallet. The solution requires a simple shift in your driving habits. Whenever you have been driving your truck on the highway or under any kind of load, never shut the engine down immediately. Sit in the cab for 2 to 3 minutes at a dead idle before turning the key. This allows the engine oil to circulate under normal pressure, while the exhaust temperatures drop back down to a safe baseline, safely wicking away the destructive heat before it can solidify into bearing-killing carbon. We have covered 4 factory configurations that are actively draining your truck's lifespan, but none of them compare to the level of engineering deception found at the very top of this list. This final item is the ultimate illusion of security, designed specifically to keep you in the dark while your engine operates on the absolute brink of mechanical failure. Setting number 1 is the factory-programmed, heavily buffered dashboard instrument cluster oil pressure gauge. If you look at the dashboard of your F-150 right now, you will see a gauge with a little oil can icon, showing a needle sitting perfectly and comfortably right in the middle of the normal range. Ford places this front and center to give you peace of mind, making you believe the truck is actively monitoring and reporting the live hydraulic pressure of your engine's lifeblood. It is a complete lie. What Ford does not want you to know is that this gauge is not a gauge at all. It is a glorified, software-driven dummy light masquerading as a precision instrument. Here is the mechanical reality of how this deception works under your hood. A true oil pressure monitoring system uses a variable sending unit that reads exact pounds per square inch and reflects those fluctuations on the dash as engine RPM and oil temperatures change. Ford chose not to install one. Instead, your engine is equipped with a basic binary oil pressure switch located on the engine block. This switch is calibrated to a laughably low threshold, typically between 5 and 7 pounds per square inch. When you start your truck, if the oil pump generates anything over that tiny 5 to 7 psi baseline, the switch closes. The engine control module receives this simple on-off signal and commands the dashboard needle to sweep directly to the exact middle of the gauge, where it stays completely locked and frozen, regardless of what is actually happening to your oil. Whether your engine is generating a healthy 50 psi at highway cruise or dropping down to a dangerously low 8 psi while idling hot in traffic, that needle will not move a single millimeter. It is programmed to lie to you. The consequences of this hidden mechanism are catastrophic because it robs you of the only early warning sign that could save your engine from total destruction. Modern variable valve timing systems, cam phasers, and hydraulic tensioners require robust oil pressure to function correctly. If your oil level drops dangerously low, or if the oil pump starts failing, or if thermal breakdown thins your oil to the consistency of water, you will have absolutely no idea. Your engine bearings could be cooking at 240 degrees, with barely enough pressure to lubricate the journals. Yet, that dashboard gauge will happily report that everything is perfect. By the time that needle finally drops to 0 or a warning light illuminates, your oil pressure has already been below 6 psi for long enough to score the camshaft journals, destroy the cylinder walls, and lock up the rotating assembly. The factory settings intentionally blind you to the truth until it is far too late for a simple fix. The solution to this systemic blind spot is to stop relying on the factory dashboard illusion. Plug an OBD2 scan tool into your port and monitor the actual PID data stream for engine oil pressure if your trim level supports it. Or, better yet, install a dedicated physical aftermarket oil pressure gauge with a real sending unit tapped into the oil filter housing. Having real-time, accurate pressure data is the only way to catch mechanical degradation before it turns your engine into a multi-$1,000 piece of scrap metal. When you look at the big picture, from the battery-draining stress of auto start-stop to the bearing-killing oil intervals and the engineered silence of a fake oil pressure gauge, it becomes crystal clear that your truck's factory settings are not optimized for longevity. They are optimized to get the vehicle past the corporate compliance finish line and out of the warranty window. The good news is that you are no longer blind to the hidden mechanisms working against your investment. You now have the exact mechanical knowledge and the actionable solutions required to take back control of your truck's reliability. By making these minor adjustments to your daily driving habits, disabling the start-stop, using your shift modes to stop gear skipping, changing your oil at 5,000 miles, letting your turbos idle down, and monitoring real engine data, You are actively reversing the built-in expiration dates imposed by the factory. Protect your truck. Share this knowledge with fellow owners who are still trusting the factory stickers, and make sure you are locked in here for more unfiltered, real-world mechanical truth. Keep your oil clean, keep your pressures real, and I will see you in the next teardown.